commendation is presented to Ernest James Harris, PhD, Lifetime Achievement Award for Distinguished Service, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, this evening, January 14th, 2012. Congratulations for being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the NAACP. As Governor, I join it, your family, your loving wife Betty, our dear friend, and a champion, ladies and gentlemen, in her own right of civil rights and human rights that sets a standard for us all, Betty Harris. And friends, join us in applauding Dr. Harris's dedication to being a champion of civil rights in Hawaii. His influence on the community, especially those of African American descent, is immeasurable. For over 40 years of dedicated service involving the protection of our fruits and vegetable crops in over 20 countries is more than commendable. It has been central to the capacity of Hawaii to be able to serve the entire world in the most basic provision of food and sustenance. He's overcome many obstacles to success in that regard and proven that hard work and patience, which was mentioned in our prayer earlier this evening, is indeed a principal faculty of Dr. Harris. We are in awe of your efforts in biological control of agricultural pests, most notably, as we all know, the scourge of Hawaii's agriculture, the fruit flies, and his success in eradicating the fruit flies from Guam, from Tinian, from Saipan, and in fact the world over. The strain of the laboratory virus that has been attacked is now referred to as the Harris strain. There are some people in Washington, D.C. right now, Doctor, that we could have that Harris strain go to work on. Congratulations on a lifetime of service, Dr. Ernest James Harris.
I feel at home here this evening. My family is here. My neighbors are here. My church members are here. St. Christopher's in Kailua. Members of other churches are here. Trinity Missionary Baptist Church. I welcome everyone else regardless of who you are. As long as you're here, I'm happy. You know, I prayed a lot conducting research, asking God for insight and understanding. You know, I grew up on a farm and so forth, and I didn't know how to do any research or anything like that. But I always thought if I could get in an organization where I have a chance to make a contribution like that, I wouldn't be the best man there, but I could do enough to make sure that I could stay on the job. My fraternity brothers and sisters are here. The links are here. And some of my research colleagues are here. So I thank each and every one of you for helping me to celebrate the success of my career conducting research on fruit flies of economic importance to the world. This would not have been possible without my 50 years of residency in Hawaii. Your support confirms that I made the best career choice staying and working in Hawaii, conducting research on detection and control of fruit flies. These insects are found in many places in the world, in Hawaii and in the world. I'm happy to have been a member of a team which successfully created and developed methods for eradication of fruit flies using the sterile insect method, the veil annihilation method using methyluginol attractant, in wafers to eradicate Oriental fruit fly from the Mariana Islands. I successfully developed methodology for rearing the egg parasitoid, Phobos ericinus, which is used successfully to suppress fruit flies in French Polynesia and Reunion Island, France. So the Phobos ericinus releases are effective tools for suppressing fruit flies which have invaded new areas that were free of fruit flies before. I have diverse interests. I'm a lay reader in the Episcopal Church, and I serve regularly at my church during Sunday worship services. Also, I support elementary education. When I was working, I tutored 2 students from St. Anne's, giving training for work in research laboratory. Also routinely help students at the University of Hawaii by providing employment in my laboratory and advice for doing research. After I finished college in 1951, that summer I was offered a job teaching science in Okolona, Arkansas. I turned down that job. I was not sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to start teaching right at that point. A college friend of mine who was in school with me at University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff came by on his way back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, riding a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. He said to me, "You can go with me to Milwaukee, Wisconsin." I said, "I can?" I put a few personal items in a bag and off we went to Milwaukee. I left my parents standing in the front yard as we left. But thinking about it later, I thought, they didn't get to see that night, I'm sure. But I didn't think about that then. I just got on the bike and we left. And that night, it rained. Of course, you know what happens when it rains and you're riding a cycle, you get wet. And the farmer let us stay a few hours in his garage, so in his barn. So we did that. Then the next morning we took off and arrived in Milwaukee that afternoon. After I got to Milwaukee, I got a job working in the chemistry lab of a Malabo iron foundry. A sample of molten iron was removed from the furnace each morning, which I analyzed to quantify the elements in the sample. I gave this information to the frontman, and they adjusted the contents of the molten metal to fit the requirements of malleable iron products. The thing about the malleable iron products, they will stretch some before they break. That was what they had to do. They had to make sure that that quality remained. So I bought a British motorcycle, ESA, to ride around with my friends. The other cycle types available at the time were Triumph, Norton, the Ariel Square 4. The Japanese cycles that are sold today in today's market did not exist at that time. I like my motorcycles because riding them feels like flying without leaving the ground. So I rode for 4 or 5 years, 52 to 1956. So I rode to Little Rock, Arkansas from Milwaukee in 1953. My cycle had a mechanical problem and I had to ship it back to Milwaukee by truck. I took the train back to Milwaukee. While at the train station in 1953, in 1951, I met a fellow classmate who graduated from the University of Arkansas with me. He introduced me to Betty Jo Hawkins, who was going to Milwaukee to visit her friend. When we got to Chicago on the train, I did not see Betty Jo again. After the train arrived in Chicago, all passengers were put in the same car for travel from Chicago to Milwaukee. So I talked with Betty Jo and offered to help her contact her friend in Milwaukee. We became friends and spent time together. She rode with me to many motorcycle events in the summer of 1953. Our friendship blossomed. And we were married April 11th, 1954. I attended Marquette University in 1953 to work on a master's in zoology. I still felt like I should do something with my education, so after I would spend a little time screwing around a little bit, then I still get out back on track. Then I would start back again. Louis Wilson, a graduate student at Marquette, told me how I could get a summer job working for the U.S. Forest Service as a forestry aide. So I applied for this job and was hired, and I was sent to work with Arnold Drews, a forest entomologist. So we worked in the Chippewa National Forest in northern Minnesota for 3 months. So I came to the conclusion that I ought to try to get a job as a forest entomologist. So while working with Arnold, I met Dr. Cutcomb, professor of entomology at the University of Minnesota in St. Paul. With his help, I was admitted to the University of Minnesota Department of Entomology in 1957. After I finished my master's degree in entomology at the University of Minnesota in 1959, I received a call from Dr. Rufus King, chairman of the science department, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. He called and offered me a job teaching science at UAPB, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. So I agreed to take the job at UAPB. The next day, I received an entomologist job offer from the state of Minnesota. I turned down the job offer from the state because I promised Dr. Kane I would take the teaching job in Arkansas. So I worked as a teaching assistant for Dr. Kane. He helped me the last 2 years of my undergraduate schooling when I did not have any other support. So I used his photographic equipment to make pictures of students on campus, which they paid me to do. Although I couldn't go back on my word. I said, once I gave my word that I was going to go and work with him, that was it. So Betty Jo, she had a job working in the mission office at the University of Minnesota in St. Paul. She was not very happy about this decision I made, but she accepted that and supported me. After we arrived in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, she was selected by Dr. Parker, the Dean of the Agriculture Department at UNA, the University of Arkansas, to serve as the secretary. So that position was pretty challenging for her. After I finished my master's degree, I applied for a job as an entomologist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Each time I submitted an application for a job with USDA, the Agricultural Research Service, I did not receive a reply to my letter. I decided that I should maybe still pursue a teaching career because I couldn't keep waiting for USDA to act. So, as I said, my first teaching job was in Pine Bluff. After teaching there 2 years, I received a call from Dr. Christensen, branch chief of the Fruit Insect Research Division in Beltsville, Maryland, offering me a job as an entomologist at Hawaiian fruit flies investigation in Honolulu. So I told Betty Jo about it. What about this offer? She said, well, let's just check it out. So I talked to the administration at the USDA about leaving my teaching job in October 1961. They told me that my contract ended in May 1962. And they would not release me from my contract unless I find a qualified person whom they could accept. So I knew a friend, Arthur Coffey, and I finished from the same high school. And I knew he was qualified, so I told him about the problem. He had a master's degree in science like I did, but the salary at UAPB was higher than the salary Arthur was getting in his job. So Arthur took the job I had at UAPB. And this change was a win-win situation for him and for me. So I had bought a motorcycle, I said this British cycle. And then I rode to Arkansas on the bike, and it broke down. So then I had to ship it back to Milwaukee by truck. And as I said before, I rode back to Milwaukee on the train. So after I took the job with ARS, after some time with my parents there, we arrived in Honolulu on February 1, 1962. After 2 weeks orientation in Honolulu, I was sent to Guam to support the melon-fly eradication experiment, sterile melon-fly releases, and male annihilation with the releases of wafers absorbed with method fusion on a tractor. The experiment was successful. We eradicated the melon-fly from rosa with sterile releases and the Oriental fruit fly with male annihilation. So I worked on Guam for 2 years, and I was transferred back to Honolulu in October 1963. I was promoted to a research entomologist position assigned to the biology and control of different fruit flies of the Tropical Fruitivorous Research Laboratory in Honolulu. I conducted research on a wide variety of approaches, including IPM, detection, suppression, and eradication of fruit flies. These fruit flies included Mediterranean fruit fly, melon fly, Oriental fruit fly, and Malaysian fruit fly. So I took the lead in involving population analysis, post-selection, infestation biology, lure trap and fruit trap development, and evaluation of suppression and biological control. My assigned area of research were develop and test new methods to detect fruit flies which do not respond to male lures or proteinaceous baits, and their parasitoids would attack eggs or larvae of fruit flies. Evaluate the biology and ecology of fruit flies and introduce parasitoids to test methods to improve effectiveness of treated fruit fly control in urban and agricultural areas. Program included basic biological and behavioral studies of fruit flies and their natural enemies. Since Hawaii is the only location in the United States with a resident population of fruit flies, I travel outside the U.S. To work with entomologists who have access to resident population of fruit flies in other locations. So I presented talks about the research at meetings in Japan, Okinawa, Malaysia, the Philippines, Australia, and that was another part of the job I liked. I always wanted to catch a Pan Am Flight 1 and go from here to Tokyo, Hong Kong. So I did that 2 or 3 times in interacting with people overseas. In the 70s, when we would develop plans for travel within continental U.S. to go to meetings and various things, we also could develop an itinerary for foreign travel. And in that, developing that itinerary, I went to India, Pakistan, Egypt, and so forth. And they would be doing research, and we draw plans to do some work together. And I would go visit the scientists collaborating with, then they come and visit us. But after a few years, that part of our work was taken over by universities, and then I discontinued that opportunity to travel on a regular basis. But I was on loan to USAID, assisting the Tunisian and Moroccan governments with medvac control for export of citrus to markets in Europe. So what came to me in personal gratification after working and consulting in 22 countries, working in Chile was a great joy, helping them establish markets in the U.S., Japan, and other countries. So they are proud and recognized and honored to be. I remember my home place in Arkansas where my parents had confidence. There's 6 of us. I passed out some material, so you saw about there's 6 of us, and we were farm workers on our parents' farm. So they had confidence in us that we could go to school each year, even though we entered late. We still managed to do very well. So this night then is done in honoring the memory of my parents, Mr. Jim and Miss Dog. That was a name that the people in the neighborhood called him. And but I'm grateful to them for their confidence in me and my brothers and sisters. And thanks and aloha to you for coming here this evening and hearing my story. I thank you very much, and I thank Mr. Alonzo Braggs, President of the NAACP Hawaii chapter, for selecting me to receive the 9th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Lifetime Achievement Award for distinguished service.